Coming to you from a remote bunker in an undisclosed location, I'm RJ Balde, and it's time to hash it out. The TRICHOMES Hash It Out podcast features conversations about trending cannabis topics. We also bring in industry insiders and influencers to discuss their point of view. In this episode, as a part of the special TRICHOMES series Convo 19, I'll be talking to Matthew Ingram of Proof about how the locally founded and funded company is handling the coronavirus pandemic. We'll also talk about the work his committee is doing to provide aid for the homeless who are at particularly high risk of contracting the virus, and more. Without further ado, here is my guest, Matthew Ingram. Today, I am joined by Matthew Ingram, founder and CEO of the cannabis product manufacturer Proof. Matthew also serves as a member on the board of directors for the Community Foundation Sonoma County and the Committee on the Shelterless, a leading homeless serving agency in Sonoma County. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad that we worked through the little audio glitches. Like we said, we're both working with what we got. You said you had kids at home that might barge in at any moment, and I have a dog that's sleeping right now that could bark at any passing bird flying by. So we are just enjoying our moment of silence right now to have this conversation.
It's a true COVID-19 conference call.
Indeed it is. And speaking of that, how is your family? How are your kids? Are you doing homeschooling, and how is that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, so I'm feel very lucky that our family, my extended family and immediate family is healthy and fine. Same can be said for our employees and our kind of larger work community. So that's great. That's really all that matters. And yeah, we are homeschooling. So both my wife and I are working from home. So I feel incredibly fortunate that we have the ability to do that, unlike so many employees right now who are out and about. I do still go to Proof with regularity, but at this point, I'm more at home than I am at work, and just on the phone a lot throughout the day. And we're learning how to be homeschool teachers. So I always have loved and respected teachers and thought that they deserve to get paid, 2 or 3 more times than they do. And that's even more so the case now after trying to do their job. It's very hard.
Yeah, to pull double duty like that, I can only imagine, which, I mean, teachers do on a daily basis. So yeah, I completely agree that they need to be compensated a little more handsomely than they do now. So Proof is a licensed manufacturer and distributor in California. You have products in over 150 stores in the state. Can you tell me a little bit about when and how Proof was founded and your company's mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So the company was founded in late 2016, early 2017. We're small, bootstrapped, family-owned and operated. My wife and I started the company, and we've been operating the company since then. We don't have any outside investment. We've just kind of taken it step by step. We have grown a lot and worked very, very hard to achieve that growth. And I think we're a little bit unique because of the family owned and operated and bootstrapped model. I mean, as you're well aware, and I'm sure we'll be discussing today, that's really been not the trend in cannabis, especially in California cannabis. It's had more of a kind of, rocket ship growth, almost tech model applied to it. And we've had more of a traditional business model, really, in the sense that we kind of put one foot in front of the other, and we make enough to pay our expenses, and then we try to make more the next month. And we've done that now for a number of years. The company was started based on really the mission and values of compassionate pricing. So you can think about this as kind of an extension of the old Prop 215 days, meaning that our company really sees the products that we make as having significant medical and therapeutic value. And thus, I think the people who buy our products should be able to afford them regardless of their income level. So, when I talk to some of our patients and customers who are using, a bottle of tincture every 2, 3, 4 days in many cases because they're very sick and they're looking for specific relief, I want to know that those people can afford to buy as much of our products as they may need. And the same is true for a recreational user. I mean, regardless of the use case, it's really important to me that we're putting on the most high quality, most effective, most potent products onto the market at the most compassionate, or you could say affordable price. I just think that because this is, especially for our product line, which is very medically oriented, we really are thinking about products that offer specific benefits to people. I want to make sure that they're on the shelf at a price that I can easily refer, my friends and my family and my community to, and know that it's not going to break the bank. So that's really the values that we hold very closely as a company. And then a lot of other values flow out from that, meaning that we think a lot about the health and welfare of our community, both our work community, so the people who work for and around Proof, including our vendors, and then also our larger community, meaning, where we are here located in Sonoma County. I view Proof as being part of a constellation of companies and service providers and community members who are trying to lift up the community around it, whether that's through philanthropy or good business practices or paying their employees fairly or giving benefits or whatever those ways of approaching it may be. Those are always considerations that we bring to our business. So we're always trying to think, how can we operate in a way that reflects our values.
Now, the coronavirus has obviously shifted a lot of the focus for businesses in the cannabis industry and beyond. You, like you said, have already placed a focus at Proof to provide high quality products at, like you said, compassionate and affordable prices. Has that been underscored even more now that you see people, perhaps even around you, that are facing financial difficulties from layoffs and furloughs due to the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a sad truth, but it is a truth that people have to watch their spending more closely than ever right now. And so
Mhm.
everyone's really thinking about their potential financial insecurities going forward. And I think even for those who are fortunate enough to have more stable jobs and who can work from home, like for example, someone who's a technocrat or a bureaucrat at a government agency, that's a
Mhm.
relatively stable job. But even those kinds of jobs are threatened when our tax base is just being decimated right now. So everyone's thinking about their cost of living and their expenditures. And fortunately, Proof is really consistent with that analysis. So, in other words, if you're thinking about trying to seek benefit for anxiety or sleeplessness or pain, and you're going to be using those kinds of products on a very regular basis so that you can make it through normal life, not to mention COVID-19 life with all of the additional stressors, people start to think on a value basis. And Proof really works in that paradigm because our products are so high quality and they're so effective. And I think in most cases we're anywhere from 15 to 35% more affordable than similar brands on the shelf. So yes, I do think it's consistent with the kind of thinking that customers are shopping with right now.
Mhm. Now, as a fully family owned business with no outside wealthy investors working with local farms, what obstacles are you facing during the coronavirus pandemic? And what are you hearing from the family farms and operations with which you work? What concerns do they have?
Well, yeah, I mean, the obstacles that we're facing are, probably ones that you could guess would be facing, which is to say, because we are bootstrapped and family owned and operated, and my wife and I, by the way, didn't come into this business with a lot of money. We don't, it's not like we had a lot of personal wealth to draw upon. In fact, it was quite the opposite. So
Mhm.
we are, very very much bootstrapped, and that's actually been a great thing for our company. And now, having done it, I don't think I would want to do it any other way. I think it's made us far stronger and more competitive and more
Mhm.
resilient. So I am actually not complaining about that at all. But it does present very real challenges. So for example, right now, our cash on hand is nowhere near what I would like it to be when you're trying to weather a storm of uncertain length. We could be looking at the situation for 2 more weeks, or we could be looking at it for another year. And no one really knows right now. So that presents challenges just from a kind of business strategic planning perspective. How much cash on hand do you have to weather a potential downturn? But really, I think the other part of your question is the part that has me more deeply concerned right now, which is that this industry in California, the way that it was built from a regulatory perspective, has always favored large, Wall Street or wealthy investor-funded companies, simply because the barriers to entry are so incredibly high. And then once you're in the market, the taxes are crushingly, extremely high, and also, the regulatory barriers don't fade away. There's just so many regulatory issues to navigate. So what that's effectively done is it's created a barrier to most of the old Prop 215, family legacy companies. Either they couldn't transition at all into the Prop 64 market, or maybe they pulled off a transition kind of by the skin of their teeth, and they were able to get their licenses and permits done, and able to meet their tax obligations and survive the first year or two of business, and maybe were starting to hit their stride. And now this is just really taking the wind out of their sails. There was a lot of media coverage about cannabis sales going through the roof, along with that panic buying kind of in mid-March. And that was true, but it really didn't last very long. I think we saw a spike that for most people lasted maybe a week or 10 days. And it really was related to the panic buying, the idea of stockpiling, because people were concerned about lack of access to their medicine or the products that they rely on. So what I'm saying is that the market, like really any other, consumer facing product focused market right now, is suffering. And so I think the small family farmers were already completely at the margin of viability. And this is unfortunately pushing a lot of them over the edge, and without support from the state, meaning, a reduction of taxes or other significant financial support, I think that we're going to see a very unfortunate decimation of the family-owned cottage industry, at least the part of that remained pre-COVID-19. And the bummer about that is that we have further advanced the consolidation of this industry into corporate power and those who have family and institutional wealth to survive this kind of downturn. And that's what really bums me out. I think Proof's going to be fine. In fact, I think this in many ways could be a good thing for us because of our business model being consistent with being profitable and being very financially conservative. But thinking beyond just ourselves and our own company, I'm very concerned about my friends and others in the industry who are going to really struggle to weather the storm right now.
Sure. And speaking of that financial support, senators are urging the Congress to allow cannabis businesses to access small business loans and things like that. But, due to the federal illegality of cannabis, that poses a very large problem for the cannabis industry. What, if anything, are you hearing about being able to access that sort of financial support for both you at Proof, the farms that you work with, and all of the local companies that you're partnered with as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I don't think we're going to get any help from any government.
Yeah, you're not holding out too much confidence on that?
We are not. We are not, and particularly from the federal government, we're not going to. They're not going to come for the cannabis industry. But that's fine. We should all fully expect that at this point. We're considered illegal from a federal perspective. So I think the chances that we'll get support right now, and I do appreciate the effort of legislators and others who are asking for that and lobbying for that. I think that makes sense. It's not a bad idea. I think the chances of that succeeding are relatively low. But I will say, we have been deemed an essential industry, and that is a absolutely critical milestone for our industry because we now have this sense of having made it into a popularly recognized sort of quote unquote normal industry. And even in this crazy situation, we saw a lot of municipalities either come out right off the bat and call cannabis essential, which is fantastic. And by the way, it makes perfect sense. And I think is the obvious choice, but wasn't necessarily going to be the case in municipalities. They came out and initially decided it was essential. And then there were many others who didn't, even San Francisco, which was crazy to see that a city that has the history it does around the cannabis industry, came out and closed the industry initially. And there was such an uproar really from the larger community. I don't think it was from the cannabis community necessarily in terms of the voice that changed their mind. I think it was from customers and patients and people who rely on these products from a medical perspective. There was a huge outcry and they reversed course. So I think what that has done is it's really helped all of us understand the way that our industry has gone through this process of being recognized, being regulated, being taxed, and now being validated. I think from a regulator perspective, and I'm thankful to all the municipalities and to Governor Newsom for the support in that regard. So I think we got our help with that, being
Hmm.
considered essential and being open comes with its own problems right now. It's not a great business environment, I think, for most, if you're honest about it, I think because of consumer spending having decreased so much. But
Yeah.
we were given that opportunity, and that's huge. And I'm thankful for that. I don't expect more coming down the pike right now, though.
Yeah. And how, for you, do you think being in the cannabis industry, an industry that since its inception has been extremely volatile and experienced, very unique challenges, very unique ups and downs, how does being a business in the cannabis industry make you maybe a little bit more adept in navigating weird sort of situations like this? Obviously, a pandemic is very different from anything else that we've experienced in the industry, but how does that versatility help you in a situation like this?
Yeah. Well, it's, something I think a lot about is the incredible ingenuity of a lot of cannabis operators.
Hmm.
I think this is something that has given me a lot of joy and pride to see that the people in this industry are incredibly hard workers, incredibly flexible. They're used to dealing with a level of change and uncertainty and chaos, and so we have those muscles kind of strengthened. I think that we've all been through, even just looking back in the past, 3 or 4 years, we've all been through such incredible trials. Whether it was onboarding metric or even before that, getting your permit and then getting your license. Each of those steps, looking back now, they're kind of in the rearview mirror, and thankfully we made it through all that, and we're all just operating. But those were incredibly difficult things that we all went through, and there's a level of resilience that builds. I mean, I joke, and actually it's pretty much true, that Proof is, I think at one point we counted, we're on like our seventh business model or something like that.
Oh,
Like
wow.
we have pivoted so hard so many times because the
Sure.
industry has basically has challenged us, in such a variety of ways that we've had to. And that has, I'm so proud of our team for having done that so well and having survived those pivots so well.
Hmm.
But yeah, have we built a level of readiness to deal with, in this case, a literal global pandemic and economic meltdown? I mean, is anyone ready for that? No. But have we practiced? Have we done a bunch of fire drills over the past 3, 4 years? Absolutely. And I think that we're going to probably more so than a normal business person who's not as used to volatility and to uncertainty. I think we're going to weather the storm pretty relatively well, given that.
Yeah. And I definitely hope so. Um, how was your 420, by the way?
It was actually great. By coincidence, I was doing deliveries that day. So yeah, I had some meetings down in Southern California, and we're based up in Northern California in Sonoma County. And I never like to, kind of have a wasted trip to Southern California. So I stack those trips with as much as I can, with other meetings or stops or in this case, deliveries. So I was actually doing deliveries for Proof all day, Monday, 420, and then the following day, Tuesday. And I was in a store on 420 at 420 doing a delivery, and we had a little cheer, and we could not, unfortunately couldn't hug given social distancing protocols, but it was great. I always really like to be out in stores talking to buyers and talking to staff members, and it was obviously a hard time. Everyone's wearing masks and trying to develop the new protocols or implement the new protocols around social distancing, but I still was really uplifted by just interacting with staff and customers that day. So I had a good day. Thank you for asking.
Of course. It's that even just like seeing a person face to face, like making eye contact with someone, even if it's from 8 feet away, 6 feet away, for some reason it just like it hits different nowadays. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna when we're able to hug a friend, I'm not gonna take that for granted.
Oh, I know, right? It's gonna last for so long. Like I'm my the next high five I give somebody is gonna be like, oh man, it's gonna be top shelf. That's for sure.
Like awkwardly long.
Yeah, and thank you. Like delivery drivers are essential to keeping the country running while everything else is debilitated. So props to you for getting out there on 420 and making those deliveries.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm no hero. Our delivery drivers at Proof are absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
As actually all of our employees are. and I really appreciate their work. And I'm working from home today, as mentioned, and we had our Amazon delivery come with some stuff for school,
Mhm.
and we thanked the driver. We happened to be outside, and we thanked him. And I think about those folks who are really out on a regular basis, and it is scary. And you can take certain protections. Like I said, I was wearing a mask during delivery, and we, washing hands obsessively, and all those things. But it's just weird to be out right now. And I think for those who are doing it on a daily basis, I have so much appreciation and recognition for the work that they're doing.
Definitely. Yeah. Now, I want to talk a little bit here about the committee of the shelter list, which I mentioned earlier. You are on the board of directors of that committee. So, the CDC says that those experiencing homelessness are at extremely high risk of contracting COVID 19. According to the COTS, in Sonoma County, 68% of homeless survey respondents reported having one or more underlying health conditions, which makes someone particularly susceptible to a serious case of the virus. Earlier this month, the committee published an outline of what it's doing to help during the pandemic. Can you share with me a little bit about what is in that outline and what the committee is doing?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll just say a little bit about COTS. It's got
Sure.
kind of a funny name, the Committee on the Shelter List. That comes from the founding of the organization,
Hmm.
where it was sort of a group of people who were trying to solve a problem here in our community in Petaluma and Sonoma County around
Hmm.
homelessness. But what we've grown to be is one of the leading service providers around homelessness and homeless related services in Sonoma County, meaning that we operate, supportive housing, emergency shelters, wraparound services like counseling and job training. There's just so much that we do at COTS, and I'm so proud and honored to be a part of it. I've been on the board there for, I think maybe, I don't know, around 4 or 5 years, and had worked
Oh.
alongside the organization in a different job prior to that. And so know the organization well. And it's just incredible work. I mean, talk about being on the front line right now. The employees and the clients of COTS, who are normally, the clients are normally in a fairly vulnerable position just by nature of being homeless or at risk of being homeless. And so to be managing, that precarious position in the context of COVID-19 is no small feat, and actually, really heroic kind of efforts being made right now. So to answer your question, I mean, to think about it from a big picture perspective, really we're dealing with an unprecedented housing crisis in California, and particularly in places like Sonoma County, which have very high costs of living. And it's not a surprise that if you don't really build housing at any significant rate, um, there's going to be a limited supply, and demand, meanwhile, continues to increase, and prices continue to go up as a result. And so the best solution to homelessness is homes. We need more homes. We need to be building, we need density, we need, 5, 6, 8 stories along transit corridors. We can't focus on this sort of single family home American dream model. It doesn't work. And we're leaving, at this point, thousands, or I think in California, tens of thousands of people behind, and who are ending up homeless. And that's just unconscionable. And then on top of that, you're dealing with a situation like COVID-19, where these people who are already at risk are, now dealing with mental health issues in some cases, substance use issues in other cases, and just the sort of proximity of being in a shelter environment or some of the other kind of housing environments that are available to people who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. It really highlights the existing disparities and inequities in our culture.
Hmm.
And so for me, it doubles down, the commitment that I have to be involved in philanthropy and be involved in my community and volunteer on these boards, because we all have to do more. We have to do better. We have to advocate for the construction of housing. We have to advocate for more resources to be invested into homeless services. And, here we are seeing a situation where you can't even really call it a safety net anymore. You've got this frayed fabric of services with little coordination and little funding, having to deal with a global pandemic. And of course, we're struggling to do that. COTS is doing an incredible job, given the resources, or really lack of resources, that are provided for this. And we could talk about some of the specifics, but I think really the larger point that I want to make is that we have to do better as a community, particularly around the building of housing and creating more housing options in California. I mean, it's an absolute crisis, and this is worsening it. And it's time to get ahead of that. And that's going to look like investments. That's going to look like different forms of taxation. That's going to look like federal subsidies. It's going to look like zoning changes and policy changes around development so that we can build more. I mean, there needs to be a whole suite of work and activities in this regard. And, so we have some leaders in this. Scott Wiener, former city council, but in San Francisco, the Board of Supervisors member from San Francisco, now at the state Senate level, has been leading a lot of work around specifically building dense housing around transit corridors and essentially forcing local communities to allow for that so that NIMBYs don't continue to block development. Things like that, I think, show a lot of promise.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the great things about your wide array of experience is the sort of the driving line between everything is a sense of community. Everything that you're doing sort of has a focus on giving back to those who make up the environment and the community in which you're living and working. So bringing that back to Proof, what is Proof doing right now to give back to the community in terms of whether that be donations or philanthropy, and why is community particularly essential right now in light of this pandemic?
Yeah. Well, one thing that surprised me about starting Proof and about running Proof over the past few years
Mm-hmm.
is how important it's become to me to be a good employer. And I don't say that surprised me because I thought I was going to be a bad employer or something, but I just find it incredibly gratifying. I had worked in nonprofits and in philanthropy, so my job immediately prior to starting Proof, I worked for a large healthcare system here in, well, they're actually across multiple states, but I was working for them here
Sure.
in Sonoma County.
Was that sorry, was that St. Joseph Health?
Yeah, exactly. St.
Cool.
Joseph Health, Sonoma County, which is
Cool.
part of a larger healthcare network in California and Oregon and Washington. And they have this incredible model of giving back to the community. So I was running the programs that were funded by the health system's philanthropy. So I was running a free dental clinic, a mobile medical clinic like a van, a house calls program for seniors who were homebound. I was involved in all of this work that was incredible. And felt so honored to be a part of that and leading that division for the hospital. What I didn't realize, a couple of years later as an employer and an entrepreneur at Proof, is how gratifying it would be to just try to build a great community of employees and be arranged around a common goal that is a business goal but also does have these social elements. So as soon as we possibly could, and frankly sooner than probably made business sense, we brought benefits on for our employees. That was a huge priority for me. We needed to bring on health and dental and life and all of these benefits so that our employees felt more protected, and they saw that we were reinvesting in them. So I think, what is Proof doing right now in the context of COVID-19? We're trying to continue to be the best kind of employer, the best kind of place to come, where we have a safe work environment, we're accommodating social distancing protocols, but we're also keeping the doors open and making sure that people can pay their bills and they're not going to go without. We did have to make a small round of layoffs, which kind of broke my heart. In fact, we didn't actually, I wouldn't say we had to do it. We did it because we saw this downturn coming. So
Sure.
this was probably maybe 3-4 weeks ago. We have a small team. I think at the time there were 15 of us, and we did have to lay off 3 of our production technicians, which was very difficult to do. We're kind of like a large family. Everyone's very close, and there's a lot of trust. And we built an amazing team, including those 3 who we had to lay off are all incredible employees, and I'm sure and I hope that they'll be back with us soon. But we did that because at this point, protecting the business and protecting the ability to employ the most number of people throughout these hard times is really our goal. We have always performed philanthropy as a business, so we have given back, particularly to COTS, Committee on the Shelter, to us when we can with cash donations, and we'll continue to be doing that once we get through this kind of crazy time. Right now, my goal is to make sure that our customers have access to our products, because I think now more than ever that's very important to their mental and physical health, and to make sure that our employees continue to have a great job to come and perform and to be part of the community that we build at Proof in our work environment. So that's what we're laser focused on right now.
Yeah. Now, I want to see if you have any personal thoughts on this. So, At Proof, you specialize in a blend of CBD and THC products. And in February, Proof announced a partnership with professional big wave surfer Nick Lamb. So I'm just curious here, how do you feel at all, if you have any particular feelings about this, how do you feel about athletes such as Kyle Turley, formerly of the New Orleans Saints in the NFL, promoting cannabidiol as a treatment for COVID-19? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, I mean that's just totally unacceptable. No one should be promoting anything, including our president, by the way,
Right.
without scientific evidence. We
Yeah.
have to be evidence based. So that is just absolutely, you know, that's just snake oil.
Hmm.
And I don't say that because I think that CBD couldn't be effective or even isn't effective, but we don't have the scientific evidence for that. And until we have the evidence, you can't claim otherwise. That's not ethical, and
Yeah.
it's not proper. So we never, and you'll see from our products, we don't even have what we call effect-based naming. So a lot of the other competitor products on the shelf in California will call themselves, like sleep or elevate or
Oh,
focus or whatever.
sure.
There's all these effect-based names. I will not do that because our products affect different people differently, and that's pretty common for medicines. That
Mm.
people have different reactions and different experiences, and it's not up to me to tell someone how my products are going to affect them. And I hear in some cases kind of polar opposite feedback on our products. Some people will tell me that the 20 to 1, for example, is really, really effective for helping them fall asleep at night. Other people will tell me that the 20 to 1 is really effective for helping them focus on their work during the day. And that's
Mhm.
awesome. And I believe both of them. I think that our systems are so different as individuals that we're going to respond to different medicines and different products in different ways. And so I want people to find that balance for themselves. I'm not going to tell them what works for them. And we would never make claims that aren't based on evidence. I mean, you'll see on our website, we have a couple of, I think, either blog posts or other posts that we put on the website related to certain cannabinoids. So, for example, we have a CBN product, and we did an analysis of the available evidence in terms
Mhm.
of what we can safely say CBN does. And the fact is, there's a dearth of evidence in cannabis because of the federal ban. It's not the industry's fault. There's the regulators and the sort of the war on drugs mentality where we've had a ban on research. But until we have really clear research, and I'm talking about proper studies, double blind studies that have large ends where you can draw real significance, I don't think it's appropriate for anyone to be making any claims about any product, cannabis or otherwise.
Oh, totally. And I think that's so great that you make a point not to do that because I see that sort of packaging all the time with a lot of companies that, like you said, brand their products as like this one will help you sleep, this one will help you study. And it's important to realize that, like you said, everything affects everyone differently. Not every indica cannabis strain is going to relax everybody. Not every sativa cannabis strain is going to energize everybody. And I think that's really great. You have the ability to recognize that and navigate your company in that sort of, I think, more responsible way when it comes to marketing. So
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I have a master's degree in public health and in public policy, and so the
Hmm.
combination of those two degrees really led me into working in health policy and thinking about how to develop and deploy health systems in a way that's going to help as many people as possible in the most meaningful ways. And in that environment, you have to be evidence based. You can't think on a population health level using anecdotal data. And so and we have a very strong team of thinkers and of scientists at Proof that all feel the same way. So when we go out and do, PADs, we share information about what comprises our products. What are we doing to make these products? What goes into these products? What's the potency of these products? And people constantly tell us, well, hey, I have, X health condition. Is this going to fix it? And we do not say yes. We're not going to make those claims. I
Right.
just don't. I wouldn't feel right about that, and I don't think other companies should be doing that either. And has that, potentially negatively affected our sales? Probably, but that's fine. I would rather perform sales in a way that reflects our values and that's ethical, and find our kind of long term traction by making
Yeah.
realistic claims. I'll just say regarding our partnership with Nick Lamb, He's the reigning champion of Mavericks. He's an incredible athlete. He's a
Yeah.
world-class big wave surfer.
Yeah.
Just such an honor to be working with him. And the genesis of that partnership is that, he finds proof to be really effective for him personally for a number of things. One is related to anxiety and the level of stress that he faces. I mean, you can imagine when you're surfing literal mountains of water that are moving, 40 miles an
Yeah.
hour. That's, you probably have some hard time, falling asleep the night before. So
Yeah.
he uses it for anxiety and for sleep. He's been using the CBN with a lot of effectiveness for sleep and also for exercise recovery. So, he basically, his full-time job is to train. I mean, the guy just works out constantly because he needs to be in top-notch shape to perform. And so he, needs to focus also on exercise recovery, and he uses Proof for that purpose as well. So it's been a really amazing partnership working with someone like Nick and hearing about his experiences using our products to accelerate his performance.
Yeah. Big wave surfing, I can definitely see would be anxiety inducing. I can definitely see that.
For the normal people like us, yes.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah. So before we go here, where can our listeners find Proof? And where can our listeners find you and what's going on with everything going on at Proof?
Yeah, so our website, proofextracts.com, has a lot of really good information. There's a very robust FAQ section that helps us explain the products and the different effects. There's also a locations tab. So if you're interested in purchasing Proof products, you can go to the proofextracts.com homepage and click on I think it's called Where Can I Buy Proof? Or there's a locations tab that lists all of the accounts that we're currently in. And I love communicating directly with customers. So there's an email address on the website. I think it's info@proofextracts.com that gets blasted out to our entire leadership team. So if you wanted to send a message through that email, I would get it along with the rest of our leadership team. And we definitely read every one of those, and we actually respond to every single one as well. So I love hearing from customers or those who are interested in our company and interacting directly with them. So please do reach out if anyone wants to talk.
Right on. I love that. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for coming on the show and taking the time to have this discussion. I wish you all the best at COTS. I wish you all the best at Proof. I wish you all the best at home with the kids, and I hope you and your family stay healthy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I enjoyed speaking.
My thanks again to Matthew Ingram for joining me. If you are a member of the cannabis community and have a story you want to share with us, we would love to hear from you. You can reach the show at hashitout@trichomes.com. You can help others find the show by taking a moment to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. You can also join the discussion with industry insiders and get your voice heard by joining the community at trichomes.com and following us on all social media. Hash It Out is produced by David Fortin and presented by trichomes.com. I'm RJ Balde. Thanks for listening.